playing for. So let's get on in the games. And of course, we're checking out Nassif here at the bottom. That is Bob the dog. And we'll be getting it going. Let's see. We'll always see Anurag here if we have our hand cams ready. It is up to the player. So if you ever see anything missing out on that, usually a tech problem behind our end, but it is a player error, if you will. But hopefully we'll be having a good day.
All right. Well, looking at Nassif's hand, looks like Nassif is on the draw for this first game with a hand of Knight of Autumn, Wall of Omens, Solitude, Wall of Blossoms, and then a couple lands to round things out. Now,
What a
Spire
hand.
Bluff Canal, Corey. What is the matchup, and how does that feel for Nassif here?
We'll try to get the other hand cam up here. I'm guessing we're Murktide Gaming. But man, I would love to say I have all the answers when it comes to that. But Nassif playing this deck, it does feel slightly memey to me. I'm not sure. Maybe Nassif is streaming as well and doing this for content. But I mean, Nassif has to have Izzet decks, these DRCs, these right event decks on his mind. So you would think that he at least has a functional matchup here, but we're gonna find out.
Yeah, you alluded to this before, right? With the turn 2 Wall of Omens stopping Ragavan, as we see Ledger Shredder on turn 2, maybe followed up by Mishra's Bauble. We'll find out really quickly here. What's the game plan overall, would you suspect, from Bob the dog's side here, getting into this first one?
Just a ton of value, trying to make sure that not only you're able to make sure you're always hitting your land drop. That's probably, one of the most important things. Make sure you control these Ledger Shredders, control all the threats, and truly run his opponent out of threats, and then start gaining advantage through ephemerates and stuff like that. I would assume Nassif wants to be the control player in this role.
Yeah, I mean, and this is incredible too. Check this out. Turn 2, very aggressive Solitude here, pitching the Knight of Autumn, exiling the Ledger Shredder. How do you feel about that play?
Yeah, I mean, get rid of it now while you can, I suppose, before you can counter it. Already a 2-for-1 there, so not amazing, but yeah, it's still solid.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point too, right? Because you do leverage cards like Ephemerate in order to generate that advantage back. But always at the end of the day, when you look at the blue-red side, what are the reasons why that deck is so powerful? Expressive iteration. So there's going to be a balance there for sure, huh?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, it's the best for a reason here. It just has so much longevity. But yeah, a missed land drop there, it looks like. And I'm guessing we do not have the hand cam for our top player. Okay.
The mystery makes it all the more fun here as Wall of Omens comes into
Absolutely.
play. And looks like we have, oh, okay, Misty Rainforest and Ephemerate. Nice. Okay, so those are two pretty good
Okay.
pickups.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to play now 5 lands with double solitude. So you can do the ephemerate trick if our top player decides to double creature or something here, but it's like they're gonna be on the defensive, and Nassif has got to be plenty happy about that. Just play draw go until I would say until he starts drawing real cards, but you know what? This is a wall deck that can these walls can start getting in there, so eventually it's going to add up.
Arcades, yeah.
Arcades. Okay. I have seen him stream this deck before, and yeah, for anybody who hasn't checked out Nassif's stream, well, what are you doing? His streams are awesome, but yeah, he does like to play some nonsense every once in a while. But most of the time when he's trying to win, he's usually a Murktide gamer as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting because I mean he's got a history of being the Tundra player, the de facto modern blue-white player. So seeing him transition to like the power of Izzet Murktide is a single tear rolling down my face.
Yeah, right. Totally agree with you.
So expressive iteration is going to find that third land and is going to put a Dragon's Race Channeler into play as well. These walls are actually really annoying. I mean, there's just no way to get through them with the Dragon's Race Channeler as it stands. So what is the overall game plan now as we see main phase Ephemerate?
Draw the cards. Draw as many cards as you can. Yeah, what we're at. Yeah, just 2 types here. So this DRC still needs some work to get turned on, but could even see something like the Ephemerate resolving now and just playing another land and Egonjoing this DRC away. Whenever you can just deal with one of these creatures on a 1-for-1 basis. Ends up being pretty good, so you don't have to Solitude it. And then from then on, then we're at land 5. Then we can just start hard casting Solitude if the opponent ever just tries to, tap out and Murktide it up.
Yeah. And what's kind of interesting here is how the pacing has sort of changed. We saw a really aggressive Solitude pitching the Knight of Autumn on turn 1, but the Dragon's Race Channeler looks like we're actually going to get to untap with it on the other side.
Yeah, and always, always decent and always a little scary to untap with a DRC just because you do get to manipulate your deck and set up these Murktides so efficiently. But still, we're in such the early stage of the game. Nassif's still looking good here.
Yeah. A Ganja being sort of like that dual sort of function spell land that, can remove a creature should things require it. Oh, another expressive iteration on the stack with the Surveil trigger. So this is one of the reasons why Murktide is really good, being able to snowball these kind of expressive iteration trains, I call it.
Yeah, easy to find more once you find that first one. I wouldn't know though. I don't know if I've ever drawn 2 of that card in a game ever, but yeah, what a magic card, huh?
It really is, just played in all formats, not even Pioneer legal at this point. As
Yeah.
another Spire Bluff Canal, it comes into play tapped though, 4th land, and then making land drops pretty critical. That's how I suppose you're going to get out of the situation where, wait, oh, this just attack? Okay.
Just a straight attack. This looks like this might be attempting to be paired with a lightning bolt here to, not only deal with this wall, but also um trying to get delirium here. Looks like Nassif doesn't want to Iganja within combat or anything like that. Interesting decision point since Nassif didn't have anything else to do. Think that, you at least consider it.
Yeah, maybe that tells you what's going on in Nassif's mind, just in the sense of like confidence. Like that seems like a pretty confident to not kill the Dragon's Race Channeler when it's served on a platter there, right?
It's like, well, you got 1 DRC, I got 2 creatures here, so I mean, clearly winning the creature battle here.
So I wonder if maybe this attack, I mean, it really doesn't feel like a good exchange, trading like a lightning bolt, for example, for the Wall of Blossoms, since the Wall of Blossoms has already uh recouped itself, just drawn a card on the ETB. So is there anything else? Maybe what would have been you just attack for the sake of attacking? It's not like the walls can do anything.
Yeah, it's free. The attack's free, and maybe there was going to be a situation where once that fetch line gets cracked, then you try to kill one of the walls. But yeah, it just really doesn't matter that much here. So
Fair enough. Ephemerate with the rebound on the upkeep, going to target Wall of Omens, and this is the sort of advantage engine that will play into the long game as Nassif picks up a copy of Prismatic Ending, and that's pretty good.
yeah, absolutely. Another land. It'll be interesting. Nassif does have the option to just Solitude right now with only 1 mana available. It's pretty fair that it's there's not going to be a way to stop that. But of course, you can just play it in response. You can get it bolted, which isn't the best exchange, but it is the one time when you can do it now without it being dealt with straight away.
So big picture here, just thinking about this matchup, right? What is one of the reasons that 1 mana versus 2 mana would matter, in this sort of board state? What's the reason to slam the Solitude right now?
Just counterspell. Just
Okay.
counterspell being available for 2, and usually the only 1 mana spell is just either the 2 of Spell Pierce, sometimes 3 after sideboard, and then 1 or 2 spell snares as the option, but none of those dealing with Solitude. And then post board, you do sometimes see subtlety coming in that can answer these for the low cost of 0 mana, but otherwise mainly just counterspell.
Yeah, and I think that's actually kind of cool. Oh, Consider's going to get cast on the end step. That's going to bin a land, give the Dragon's Race Channel Delirium. So now it's a 3/3 with flying, which means that these walls are not going to do too much. But yeah, it's one thing that I actually really like about playing with and against these Izzet decks is that there's always like an option, a decision. You have to think about every small thing, like playing Solitude around Counterspell. It looks like Nassif is just going to pass the turn, so we get to untap, and we do have the counterspell mana now, so this may be a point of consideration to come back to if the game does end up going a little bit sour.
Yeah, 100%. That is just modern in general, and that's why I think it's such a great format. Is there's always wiggle room, different plays that you can be doing. It's not really dictated, by just like matchup dependent. Sometimes even the pro tour that we just were at last weekend, there were some Pioneer matchups where it was just complete decimation in either one of the deck side. There's just some blowouts that we would be seeing, even in the top 8, Shota up against um uh
Derek
Davis,
Davis. Yeah, yeah,
Derek
yeah.
Davis, and like where that's just a terrible matchup, even though Shota's been dominating. He knew going in, he's like, well, I don't know if I stand a chance against this, even though he 12-1 the Swiss. So really different formats there for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think the other thing that's really interesting too is like we didn't see prismatic ending be used on this as well. So this is the question of like how do we how do we line up our answers to their threats here as Aganjo is going to take care of the Dragon's Rage channeler? Is there a reason we're not firing off these solitudes?
Yeah, I think just being patient, trying to get one of the bigger targets, which it looks like we're going to see now of
Okay.
Murktide. That's that famous hesitate, like, oh, you got 2 mana. Why is the spell not on the stack? Type of play. And honestly, I think if this game goes, with Nassif falling, it could come back to that turn where he didn't use his mana to Iganja the DRC, where now Nassif could have win end step Solitude, his main phase Solitude again, and this Murktide would for sure die. But
Yeah.
that's not the
Yeah.
case now, so could be a little bit of a tension point here.
This seems like this is one of the reasons why I also think Murktide is the most played because you just have a five counters. Is that 5+1 counters on this 3/3? So it's an
Yeah.
8/8 flying dragon. Like why?
Just
Why?
an
This
8-8,
is so
no big
sweet.
deal.
Yeah.
No big deal. But
The
while
king.
we say that, the king of yellow hats draws Ice Fang Quaddle, which is just an extremely nice exchange here.
Mm-hmm.
But there hasn't been a lot of red removal cast from our Murktide gamers, so leads to believe that it's probably not too long for this world with this Quaddle.
Yeah, it's kind of a delicate situation here. So, okay, let's put it this way, right? You're in Nassif's seat right now. You've got a couple options here. You've got Ice Fang Coatl, you've got a couple Solitudes. How are you, Corey Baumeister, navigating this scenario with the cards that you have in hand right now?
Well, me, Corey Baumeister, wouldn't be having these cards in my hand to start, first of all, but no, I like this though. Prismatic endings not being that great. I think I would have maybe just waited till end step and checked out what our opponent did, but this is end up going to be working out a lot better for Nassif, as now he can just jam this other Solitude. And you got to just do it now. Got to get rid of this Murktide and hope there's not a huge follow-up. But that's the thing about Izzet is this deck does not run out of steam too quickly. So we should be seeing Solitude here, cleaning this up. Enjoy your
Yep.
8 life.
And that's a really good point you brought up too, right? With the double iterations that we already saw, this next turn on the untap is going to be pretty important here because if the pressure does die down, I mean, what does that mean for the fate of the match? It just feels like a really good position for Bob the Dog here.
Oh, absolutely. But that being said, Nassif is pretty much out of steam here. One Ice Fang Quaddle, another land. He's definitely going to need to pick up some gas here, but there goes Lightning Bolt. Slightly risky into an Ephemerate deck, but when you don't have a creature on the battlefield, it's not so bad.
Yeah, almost feels like a forced play here. Scalding Tarn going to be the land for turn, and then passing. So no threat. So at 15 life, I feel like the Bant is really, really well positioned. Ice Fang going to be on the stack now.
Let's see if there's a spell snare here. That's kind of the blowout effect. Just something. Ooh, yeah, goes for the counter.
Wow. Okay, it feels like a big commitment counterspelling the Ice Fang Coatl.
Yeah, it really is. But honestly, it's the Simic Doomblade, if you will. It just kills everything in this deck. And it's either you counter it straight away or you get 2-for-1 at some point to try to get your threats through. So I like it. The old Noble Hierarch Wall of Omens deck, the old 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for something like Arcadius to come off the top, get slammed, put into play, and then you just pump it in for like 5 damage each turn with these walls.
Yeah. Yeah, so now that card, it turns all your walls into just creatures right away, or?
I think it's one of those weird mechanics where you can like attack as though or you deal damage as if like with your toughness rather than your power or something like
As
that.
if you didn't have defender. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's another one too, right? And then there's another there's like some card advantage-y line with the card here, but unfortunately no dice. We top deck a Temple Garden and it's gonna be a slow grind. We've given them plenty of life.
Attack for 1. Gotcha.
27 down to 26.
Yeah, now it's just gonna be a top deck war here.
This rarely happens, but I was playing a match of Magic where all my threats got extracted by surgical extraction. So I just had like a 1/1 that was like the last hope. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep attacking and I hope I get there. My opponent was at 18. I did not get there.
You did not get there. That's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair. Yeah, the old probably up against Demir Mill, huh?
Oh. That deck is also pretty sweet. I feel like it's gotten some
Yeah.
upgrades with Phyrexia, which maybe we'll get to take a look at some point.
Yeah, I think it's a good deck, to be honest. Like I've struggled with it in the past. Probably has some polarizing matchups, but yeah, a really cool one for sure.
Okay, and still 4 cards in hand from the Izzet side. Oh, and there it is. Arcades the strategist.
Okay. Let's see if it's gonna resolve. You'd think with 4 spells, not playing anything, it's gonna be a little tricky, but there could be plenty of things that you could have. Unholy Heat being pretty common right now and probably be a great answer to these walls. But I mean, you could have Regavans in hand and stuff like that that are not really gonna help you too much. But all right, here comes a big old attack.
This is just quite hilarious to me. I don't know. The whole this meme thing is great. And this is interesting. Why so earlier I mentioned that we were punching it for 5 points of damage. I kind of just did that on accident. I feel like we should
Yeah.
be attacking with both walls. Is there a reason that Nassif is holding one back?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that there's an unholy heat. And if that does happen, and let's say our Murktide gamer was holding on to Regavans and you attacked with both walls for no reason, and all of a sudden you're letting your opponent connect with that, and that feels a little rough. But as we say that, this card just was, this just connects for 5. And you got to think maybe the opponent is just flooded, something like that as well. Of course, we're going to try to have all the hand cams ready, but it is just up to the player. Maybe we'll have someone poke this player just in case.
All right. Well, Scalding Tarn going to come into play. I think you're right. It sounds like there's a lot of lands in play, and now the damage is going to look pretty scary. This is at least a 2-turn clock, right?
Oh, yeah. Now things get crazy, and you got a 2-mana 4/4 draw card come into play. Not bad. Not bad stats.
Oh, and then this is it. Arcades' second ability. So when a creature with Defender enters the battlefield, you get to draw an extra card here. So,
Wow.
oh, yeah. This is...
Wow.
Close your
Wow,
eyes, Teferi.
wow. All right, not bad, not bad. I'm a believer now.
And you
Oh,
just get to
wow.
bounce the Wall of Blossoms too? This is sick.
Yeah, like first you can start by attacking for 1,000,000. This is just okay, you better play something now if you have anything type of turn before this static stops all the action. And then, yeah, bouncing Wall of Omen, draw a card off Teferi, then draw a card off wall again. But I would love to see Nassif top 8 with this beautiful
Yeah, right?
Bant masterpiece.
So it's funny because I was watching one of his showcases and he actually went like X and 3, very almost went X2, losing the last round of creativity. So
Oh, you played the showcase with this?
yeah, he actually did. Yeah. So
Nice.
I think this deck actually has like like a solid core. Plus like something Pro Tour, champion, Pro Tour expert. There's a reason he's playing this deck, right? Maybe it's
Yeah,
not
for
just all
sure.
memes.
Absolutely. He does love value decks, that's for sure. And so do I. They just haven't been that great as of late. Like I remember these kind of Bant style decks used to just be incredible when you had like Mystic Sanctuary, you're playing these Mystic Sanctuary decks. Like that's the last time I remember these style of decks being incredible.
Oh,
But I
Field of
mean,
the Dead,
look at
right?
this now. Like, I mean, Nassif just fully has just completely pulled away from this game.
You love to see it.
I
It's
mean, his hand
interesting
is
because
broken.
yeah, going back to the overall conversation about Modern being this balanced format, I mean, it really does give you the ability to like, brew and come up with these like, interesting synergies.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
totally agree. Totally
yeah.
agree.
Here's a expressive iteration. I think if there's a card that could bring Murktide back into this would be the card, Mishra's Bauble, to pick up here.
Yeah, it's gonna just take so much right now. I mean, you have to find Unholy Heat step 1, deal with this 3/5, and go from there. But yeah, and even then you just have so much value drawing so many cards that it's going to take a lot. It's for sure going to take a lot here.
Okay, well there it is. First step, Unholy Heat going to take care of the Arcades.
4th Spire Bluff Canal, not exactly what you want to see. And yeah, just this deck is not Regivan is not very well positioned against the old 8 wall and then 4 Ice Fang Coatl dot deck. Wow, that just seems scary. I mean, if you're on the play, you can still sneak through. You know, unless you have prismatic endings or you want to pitch Solitude or whatever. But man, if Regivan decks are on the draw and you're thinking to get through and you want to burn through Wall of Omens and Wall of Blossoms, doesn't feel like you want to or be where you want to be at.
Yeah, and I mean, even on the play, like as the Murktide deck, you get one hit with the Ragavan, right? And then after that,
Exactly.
so
Yeah, it's
actually,
like it better be good.
this is an interesting question because I almost wonder, are there matchups where you consider boarding out some of these haymakers like Ragavan, like Dragon's Race Channeler? Because this one does not seem like a good matchup for Ragavan at all.
Yeah, Regivan for sure. DRC, if it's able to fly over and set up your draw steps, it's at least not bad. But yeah, I'm sure we're going to see some heavy sideboarding from our Murktide player, bringing in Solitudes, maybe Dress Downs, maybe even Blood Moons. There's going to be a lot of pivoting, I would imagine. And you just think that the Lightning Bolts are probably not the best against 04 deck, but we'll see. I mean, you gotta keep some of them in to deal with Coatls that resolve, to deal with Solitudes, all those things like that, and even turn one Noble Hierarch, is still a big problem as well.
All right, Windswept Heath is the draw for the turn here, but the hand is stacked with a copy of Prismatic Ending, Wall of Blossoms, and Icefang Coatl. Each card here, like the Wall of Blossoms, the Icefang Coatl, they just replace themselves, so it's not even like there's no real good way to handle it, and the problem is just like snowballing and getting worse.
Yeah, it is a ton of value here, and just every card draws a card. It seems there's no mass removal spell out of these Murktide decks. Everything's a 1-for-1 basis, so and everything's uncounterable with Teferi in play. So everything seems pretty rough.
I guess there is one consideration, and that's just like factoring in time and closing speed. With these Icefang Coatls, maybe you can chip in for a couple points a turn, but without Arcades, what is like? How else is this deck supposed to win?
Yeah, it seems like just Arcades that eventually you'll draw it. But otherwise, just chip it in there with Solitude damage, stuff like that. But yeah, we don't exactly have our list right in front of you, so we'll have a better picture of what everything's going on after round one. Everything gets populated to us, and everything gets entered. A little bit of a weird system on our back end, but we'll have a better picture for you starting the next round. But yeah, man, I'm here for this deck already. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. Okay, so Dragon's Rage Channeler, this should be delirious because yeah, we were able to Unholy Heat earlier, which means now we have an angle that we can maybe do something with. Unholy Heat going to target the Teferi.
Might as well Quaddle first, see if you can find some kind of disruption here.
Oh, this is actually really brutal, right? Because having to like attacking being mandatory here, Ice Fang lines up so nicely with the Dragon's Rage Channeler
Yeah,
in
it
play.
does. Yeah, it does. That's brutal to have to attack into that. But now we got prismatic endings and stuff too, if you just want to deal with that. And with only 2 cards, yeah, this game has felt over basically ever since the Teferi resolved. But going through the motions here.
Even like the you know what? All right, called shot. I felt like this game ended on when the wall came down into play on turn 2, and then there was just like nothing. Actually, no. The memes aside. I think it was the turn where Murktide Regent was taken care of, and then there was no
Yeah.
follow up threat on the untap.
Yeah, that was a really big moment. And I mean, Nassif did have to have 3 solitudes here to make it happen, and they were basically all forced counter spells. So, well played, of course, by the Hall of Famer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of interesting here, but maybe this is like, is it Murktide? Is this Bant Arcades' deck? Like, it's the dream matchup, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. Because
Yeah.
everything lines up so well.
Yeah, and here's Soul Hoarder. Completely forgot about that one. That, of course, is one of the more powerful cards if you can protect it. And yeah, what a terrifying card once that gets going. Has to be one of Nassif's favorite cards. Whether it's extremely good or not, that's still to be determined. It is a 3-mana card in Modern, which is quite expensive in this format.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's the upside, though, is I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but that's at least 2 lightning bolts and 3 unholy heats that have been used. So maybe there's a chance that the Soul Herder just doesn't die.
Oh yeah, with only 1 card, it definitely could run away with this. Probably want to get in some attacks first, get chipping for 2 here and there. But if it does, I mean, this Quaddle will clock this game at some point. Nassif is not trying to win fast with this deck. And we see the clock definitely in favor of Nassif here. So not too worried about being clocked out. Because a reminder, this is game 1. So players have to have that in mind. And yeah, just recognizes that probably at the same time. Like, I got to win 2 games. I got
Yeah.
11 minutes. That is something these players still have to be wary about, just like any other game of Magic Online.
Yeah, so in terms of sideboarding, I'm kind of curious what these Bant decks usually what do they bring to the table? Because you already briefly mentioned tools that the Is It Murktide list might have.
Yeah, let's take a look. So we're gonna take a look at Nassif's list here. Cards that you probably want here. Rest in Peace seems really good. Doesn't affect your game plan. Chalice of the Void on 1 is probably pretty good. Doesn't really shut off anything in your deck besides Ephemerate, which is a real thing. So we'll see about that. Might not be the case there. That might just be for Cascade decks where you just play it on 0. Endurance is a great card here. And then maybe Subtlety is all I would consider.
Okay. Is there anything in the main deck that is like notably bad? I mean, you mentioned, Soul Herder being a 3 mana card is a
Mhm.
liability, perhaps.
Maybe for sure Night of Autumn. That's the other one that is screaming out terrible to me. Maybe the Noble Hierarch since it's a little random. Maybe the Witness. Maybe one of these kind of one of cards. Probably trims on walls in some matchups as well. But yeah, I mean, full spoiler, y'all. Believe it or not, I don't play a lot of Bant mid range here.
What? Really?
I don't. I don't. I've been a Jeskai Breach gamer for far too long. I need to branch out because this deck looks sweet. I want to try this for sure.
I It's interesting because I see a copy of main deck Rest in Peace, which I hadn't noticed before. So it seems like maybe my earlier sentiment. I'm gonna double down on it. This guy, like
Yeah.
Nassif, is just trying to hammer out that one matchup. Probably because it's so popular.
I mean, a lot of matchups right now are pretty reliant on the graveyard. So Rest in Peace does seem at a great spot if your deck doesn't get affected by it at all. It does hit quite a few things. So not a bad strategy at all.
If we have the Murktide list, I'd like to take a look at that as well, just to get an understanding of how that sideboards. All
Yeah,
right, so it
maybe
looks like we.
Yeah, maybe if we have a stock Murktide list, we can kind of take a peek because these lists are all pretty dosh gone close, I must say. I mean, everything's going to be a little different. One thing that I'm not seeing in this list that, oh, I guess it's in the main. Just kidding. I was like, sideboard dress downs end up being quite good in this matchup. So it'd be nice to see a couple of those. One of my favorite cards in Modern.
Yeah,
But But outside of that, I mean, Blood Moons are something you'd be really interested in. More removal. Fury seems pretty solid if you can maybe nab a Soul Herder plus a Quaddle, something like that. It doesn't line up well against walls, but nothing in these decks really do, is what I'm noticing so far. I mean, these walls are just gonna basically remain unchecked, so it's gonna be interesting. But all right, let's get ready for game number 2 here from the Hall of Famer.
yeah, that's an interesting point. So looking at the opening hand here, you got a Solitude, Wall of Blossoms, Icefang Quaddle, and Soul Herder with plenty of lands to cast everything. So
Yep.
this has to be a snap keep, I'd imagine.
I'd be sneaking it. Yeah, that's a good start. Good start. And reminder to anyone that's just joining, other hand cam was not operational, so we'll try to get you matches with both of them working here in the future.
Okay, well here it is. Turn 1 Ragavan off of Steam Vents.
Yeah, we'll see if Nassif prioritizes like just dealing with it now. There's one way to deal with it. It involves getting rid of some of your good cards, but I mean, the games where you lose here are the games when your opponent just goes, okay, whatever, attack with Ragavan and hold up counter spells from here on out. Nassif recognizing that as well, that the 2-for-1 is clearly worth it, where Nassif doesn't want to fall behind on the battlefield first and foremost. So I like that play from Nassif.
Okay, yeah. Corey, can you break it down for me too? Like, because I feel like just solituding on your main phase before you play a land or anything, that's one line. But what are the other potential options that Nassif may have been considering? Why not just do it before your opponent gets the chance to maybe dash a second Ragavan in?
Yeah, that's reasonable. Mainly just counterspell. If they just play land 2 and counterspell, you're just really in a world of hurt without having any kind of protection. So yeah, that's got to be the main thing, and you just have to deal with it before it connects. If you get turn 2 Blood Moon or anything like that, ends up just being a nightmare for you.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense here. And looks like we're going to pick up a copy of Prismatic Ending. Misty Rainforest is going to fetch a land, and we got a number of options this turn.
Yeah, be interesting if you want to wait a little bit to try to play around Spell Snare. That's kind of the number one thing that I'd have on my mind. I'd probably consider waiting until Quaddle, but the better play is to just play Wall of Omens here. So
Yeah.
it's pretty tough to play around it. But those are the scenarios that are really rough, is when you just get your 2-drop spell snared after they play a 1-drop, and then they get to untap, have mana to play something, and a threat on the battlefield. Ends up being quite scary.
It's actually really tricky, actually, now that I think about it, because on one hand, Icewind Quaddle, like, you are okay with it getting bolted, but sometimes you're not, right? Like if you're trying to keep up tempo and things like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's a card that they'll probably have to kill at some point because, well, that's the way to get through damage in this Murktide deck. You know, there's no winning the game outside of damage like some other combo decks can do. So eventually you have to kill it, and yeah, it doesn't feel bad because you're naturally 2-for-1ing yourself.
Okay, well, Endurance is a really good pickup here, as Ragavan's going to be cast for the dash cost.
Yeah, Endurance being really nice that you can cast next turn. Here, this is just trying to put in 1 damage. I would assume this is being accompanied by a lightning bolt. Otherwise, this play doesn't feel great, or Unholy Heat to be able to deal with it.
Okay. Yeah, see, this is so interesting because the dynamic of just putting an O4 into play against the Lightning Bolt deck is really just um, changing how everything plays out, right? The mechanics just aren't the same at all.
Yep. It is. It's brutal, and I mean that is the whole point of these Wall of Omen decks. Is they are kind of attacking this metagame in a way that the metagame's not necessarily ready for. So yeah, maybe this deck is more than a meme.
Yeah, don't say that to me. My heart can't take it.
I mean, we'll see 5 rounds from now if we still got Nassif at the top of the standings. But I mean, match number 1's looking great for Yellow Hat.
All right, so Ledger Shredder going to come into play Ragavan next, and that's going to trigger the Connive ability on Ledger Shredder, pitching a Misty Rainforest. So no counter here. Of note, Icewind Quaddle currently does not have Death Touch, but there are some lands in the hand here. Flooded Strand to pick up for the turn.
Yeah, absolutely. We're probably gonna see one more Snowland come into play. You got to prioritize that, not only for Icewind Quaddle, but just being able to insulate yourself against Blood Moon ends up being something really good for these. Just any deck playing against Murktide, you know, especially with the huge tick up in Amulet that we've been seeing, which I'm even surprised that we don't have Amulet as one of our top decks. With the new Garden, I forget whatever the new card is that copies amulets, ends up just making every single Amulet player hyped about the deck again. And honestly, I think I'm speaking for every Amulet player. They're like, if you get any shiny new toy, it's like, yes, I must play, 1,000 matches with it and guarantee if it is good or bad for the deck. And, the Amulet conglomerate make sure and talks it out, and they make a final say on if it's good or not. And so far, it seems pretty good.
I'm not sure if this is an Amulet roast or not, but definitely agree. Amulet players and Storm players alike, they once an Amulet player, always an Amulet player.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Especially when the deck used to be even more complicated back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Pre Field of the Dead, where you just had to go through all these absurd lines to be able to get the wins, and then it got really easy. Now it's kind of hard again. And yeah, it's an interesting style of deck for sure.
Yeah, so I have a question here. We had a number of options this turn, most
Mhm.
notably Teferi and then Endurance. Nassif has elected to go for Endurance here. Is there a reason why one is better than the other?
Yeah, that surprised me too. That felt like a Teferi time to me, but the one thing that Teferi didn't do was protect you against just removal spell on Quaddle, attack Teferi, which is kind of brutal, but it's not even like game breaking. So yeah, Endurance was slightly interesting to me, especially because there wasn't a lot of spells in the yard. So you weren't that afraid of Murktide coming down straight away. But Nassif's played this deck a lot more than me, and getting the 3/4 body down once again, 4 toughness from this deck just ends up being a really tough thing to deal with, especially without a graveyard.
Yeah, like look at this, no attacks. Oh man, that's a great sign.
Yeah. Now Nassif's gonna have to play this next turn pretty wary, because if you just play Teferi, you got to think your opponent has a counter spell.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, and I want your opinion on this,
You're
but it
wrong.
seems like the
Wait,
way
I should wait for the question. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
the way game one played out, it really did seem like Nassif's plan in this matchup is not necessarily to win, but more so not to lose.
Yes, I think that's Nassif's strategy just in every match of Magic. Like I think that's just always his game plan. Although, of course, we did see him play Is It Creativity, which is a deck that is very much trying to win, but Pioneer being a much different format, of course.
30U in one hit. Let's go.
Yeah. I like the not playing Teferi here, especially with the pickup of a Ganjo. Nassif really, with that attack, not only does he want to start getting in damage, that's not the main reason of this attack. This attack is just to be like, all right, kill that Quaddle and just try to start getting in there. Nassif wants an attack right now. So, like, removal spell on Quaddle into Bring It is great, because then not only can he play Quaddle to start to then block Regavan, but then can a Ganjo and get stuff out of here. So, this is great for Nassif.
Oh, wow. And look at this. Ragamon in the red zone. Ledger Shredder seems to be bugged. It's dancing in and out.
Shredder can dance if it wants to. It can leave its monkey friends behind.
So notably, the Windswept Heath could fetch to turn on Death Touch here, so that would be offering a trade Ice Fang Quaddle for the Ledger Shredder. Looks like Murktide is saying no. We want to keep the Murktide player is saying no. We want to keep the Ledger Shredder in play, which is kind of an interesting optic. What does that mean?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a good play here with it, with the Aganjo being in hand. But yeah, it is a bit of an interesting play. It was probably just playing around Endurance number 2 or Ephemerate. Those would have just been complete blowouts, but played around Aganjo pretty well as well.
Yeah. And I gotta say here, so Ragavan number 2 coming into play, maybe that explains why the first was disposable. But small sequencing things here, I really like what Nassif's doing.
Agreed. Yeah, this deck looks pretty awesome. Gonna see Ice Fang here, and if Matthias had any idea that this was really the only card that could be cast right now, maybe you would snap counter this. But with Teferi being able to be a follow up here at any point, there's going to be some bad news for our Murktide gamer. There was Dress Down.
Oh, wow. That is a significant discard here.
That is a significant discard. That's got to mean that there's got to be something out there. Counterspell, maybe another Dress Down. You got to think the hand is pretty good.
Right.
Because the counters don't matter that much with a bunch of Quaddles and stuff like that. Ooh, Veil off the top was huge.
Okay, are you slamming? Draw. Are you slamming?
Slamming Teferi now for sure.
Yeah.
If you get this countered and you get to Veil, looks like it wasn't there in the first place. Yeah, that was huge for Nassif. Man, I might just let you commentate this yourself. I'm gonna go rent this deck from Manatraders and just get in the queue, okay? Maybe I can double queue, okay? I'll commentate and play some value train here because this deck was
You
awesome.
may or may not run into me in the cube, and it's gonna be the walls mirror.
Oh god, I think we just have to give up commentating at that point. We got a wall mirror.
So this is interesting. Ice Fang coming in the red zone here. That's a pretty confident attack.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, you would know the answer to this question. Aganjo, does it get cost reduction from Teferi?
It is not. It's just creatures.
Okay. All right. So
yeah, Ganjo not able to be cast here, but can still flash in Ice Fang. But yeah, if Shredder were to get a couple counters, could be dealt with there. And maybe that Dress Down was meant to be discarded just to hit Delirium. Enchantment is a tough type. That is able to clean this up here.
All right. Well, Ledger Shredder going to do Ledger Shredder things, conniving with the Consider on the stack here. And we know right now Nassif's hand is Ice Fang Quaddle with the Teferi, works really well together. Veil of Summer, Wall of Omens, and a Noble Hierarch is the pickup.
Yeah, it looks like Teferi can fall. If Matthias wants it dead. That will mean Regavan gets traded with. Yeah, this could also be a big Murktide turn, which Hat doesn't really have a great answer for right now. See where those attacks are going.
All right. In the red zone they go. Ice Fang Quaddle now on the stack into play. Again, Teferi in play means opponent cannot use their mana to interact at this stage.
All right.
Okay, that's fascinating. Do you agree with that? Blocking the Ledger Shredder instead of the Ragavan?
Yeah, I think so. Just as long as both were going at the Teferi, it's gonna die anyways. So yeah, I like that play. And now you're able to just bait out a couple cards now. Nasiv is plenty fine if anything gets countered, as you can just Veil of Summer and protect it.
Yo, this does not seem close at all.
It
Oh
really
man.
hasn't. It really has not. And if there was a Murktide there, it'd be decent because this Quaddle can't be protected by Veil, so this could still be pretty good. But now even if Quaddle gets dealt with, I mean this Regavant's just gonna run into that wall over and over.
Okay, Fiery Islet. I'm gonna cycle to draw another card here. 3 cards in hand here for the Murktide player, and yeah, they've seen the writing on the wall, and the a
Yeah.
2-0 victory here for Bant Arcades.
Love it. Love it. Having our hero started off right with walls. I mean, that deck is awesome. So now